Okay, so you're back for another deep dive with us. And wow, have you given us a fascinating pile of material to dig into this time. We're talking about, get this, training methods of the 72 Arts of Shaolin. Specifically, we've got these excerpts from Kung Fu 72 Shaolin Skills magazine, and then this book by Jin Shen Shu, published way back in 1934.
Yeah, we're going on a bit of a mission here. We're going to try to understand some of these, well, ancient training practices, right? Not just what they did, but what were they aiming for and how did they actually go about it? There's some really intriguing stuff in here.
It's amazing the range of skills they cover in these sources. I mean, we're seeing everything from building like superhuman strength, they call this the hard or yang approach, all the way to like cultivating this subtle internal energy, this soft or YIN style. And then there's some really, really specialized techniques that sound almost, I don't know, mythical. So this isn't going to be just a dry list of moves.
Hmm.
We're going to look at the dedication, the discipline, and honestly, some pretty surprising methods involved in all this.
Okay,
Where do we even begin? How about that skill of eagle wings? It's number 37 on the list.
right. Ying Yi Gong, the skill of eagle wings. The aim, it's pretty clear cut to strengthening the outer body. Specifically, they're talking about developing arm strength, like really powerful punches and palm strikes. And it wasn't just for show. It was about being able to defend yourself against all sorts of weapons.
And the way they train for this is really specific. Imagine this. You've got two vertical poles stuck in the ground, and then they're connected by this horizontal bar up top. From that bar, they hang two sandbags. The magazine gives us exact measurements, 3.5 CHIs above the ground. Now, a CHI is roughly a third of a meter, so we're talking, what, a little over a meter tall? And the poles are 2 CHIs apart, so like 60 centimeters or so. And then the person training, they'd be in this MAB stance that's that wide leg squat, really fundamental in the martial arts. And in that stance, the sandbags would be like right at head level, with the bottoms of the bags no lower than, let's see, 6 or 7 CUNs below the shoulder, so about 20 centimeters.
Exactly. And even the way they add weight is interesting. They start with 10 JINs in each bag, that's about 5 kilos. And every month, they increase it by 2 JINs, 1 kilo, until after a year, they're up to 34 JINs, a whole 17 kilos per bag.
Wow. So the first part of training is all about holding that MABU stance, and your arms are bent at the elbows, and you're holding these weighted bags up at shoulder height. And the key is the pressure is coming from your arms, not just from gripping the cords. They say you do 30 repetitions every day, gradually increasing to 100 over that first year.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it's a slow, steady buildup, right?
And then it gets even more intense. Phase 2. Now they're using bags that weigh 20 JINs, 10 kilos each, and the movement changes. It's more explosive. You're still in MABU, elbows tight to your sides, and then, bam, you lift those elbows, striking upwards, trying to hit the lower part of the sandbags and really drive them up. At first, they might only move a couple of CUNs, like maybe 6, 7 centimeters. But the goal is to eventually get those bags flying 2 CHIs or more into the air 60 centimeters or higher. So you're building this serious upward striking power.
And they don't stop with the weight increases there either. In this phase, they say you add 5 JNs, 2.5 kilos, before every training session, until you get all the way up to 50 JNNs per bag. That's 25 kilos. The text suggests if you can handle that weight with that explosive elbow strike, well, that's a sign of really high-level skill.
So all this demanding training, what's it supposed to lead to? What are the supposed benefits here?
Okay, so they say if you truly master this skill of eagle wings, you could achieve some pretty incredible things, like pushing an opponent back 3 ZA gang, that's about 10 meters, or deflecting spear attacks just with your elbows. They even claim you could deliver these super powerful blows with your fists and palms, develop what they call a lethal arm. And get this, even stop rolling stones. As if that wasn't enough, it supposedly strengthens your arms, elbows, and even your lungs. It's a whole package of potential benefits, right? It's really all about developing that raw external power. Yeah, it's definitely a picture of like serious physical force. Now let's switch gears a bit. Skill number 38, the arm of sun rays. This is one they call a soft Jioing Ki Fu, meaning it focuses on internal power development.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a contrast to the very external focus of the eagle wings.
Yeah, Yang Guang Shou. It's categorized as YN, and they do say it's generally a bit easier to master than some of those really demanding physical skills. To give you an idea, they tell this story about a master, Guo Li Zheng. He was a Taoist in Liaoning, deaf from childhood, and the story goes he could make a dog bark just by pointing at it. There's another one where apparently one of his disciples felt this sharp pain in his back hours after Master Guo just kind of moved his fist in his direction without actually touching him. They call this hitting the cow over a mountain, this idea of force being applied indirectly.
That's wild. Okay, so how do you actually train this kind of internal power? They describe a very specific method. You light a small candle or lamp. The flame should be about half a CUN high, so like 1.5 centimeter. You stand 3 CHIs away, a meter, in that MABU stance again. Then you concentrate your QI in your lower stomach and you punch towards the flame. But here's the key. You don't actually touch it. You keep doing this until the candle burns out completely. And they say you do this every morning and evening.
The way the training progresses is interesting too. The first goal is to be able to put out that flame from 3 CHIs away, just with the force of your punch, no physical contact. Once you can do that, you slowly increase the distance all the way to 8 steps. If you can still extinguish the flame from that far away, they consider you successful in that stage. And the claimed effect, well, it's pretty mind-boggling. They say you can actually inflict sharp pain on someone without even touching them at a distance of 2 or 3 steps. And they attribute this to a specific type of QI, that YIN category that you generate and direct with the force of your fist. It's a very different kind of power compared to that brute strength of the eagle wings, right?
Absolutely. Okay, on to skill number 39. This one is interesting. It's called Exercise for Groin, or Men Dan Gong. And they say it's a soft GO on FU, so focusing on internal energy. But here's the thing. It supposedly trains outer power, and it's still classified as YIN. They make a point of saying this is really hard to master, and the goal, well, it's pretty out there, to make the scrotum as hard as stone. I'm not sure how to even approach this one.
Yeah, this one definitely stands out. So the first part of training is actually more like meditation. You sit cross-legged and you consciously try to clear your mind, no distractions, no worries. Then you focus on getting your QI flowing throughout your body. You circulate it from your lower stomach, up your spine to the brain, and then down the front of your body back to the dantian. That's a key energy center in Chinese thought, down in the lower abdomen. You do this several times a day, but they stress you got to do it slowly, no rushing. At first, you might not feel much, but gradually, they say, as you get better at concentrating QI in the lower abdomen, well, things start to change. The scrotum and penis, they say, begin to harden, and that's supposedly a sign you've successfully completed this first stage.
Okay, stage 2 gets a little more direct, let's say. You're still sitting cross-legged, but now you start tapping your testicles gently with the palm of your hand. The text says this is going to hurt at first, no surprise there. But the key is you keep doing it while concentrating your QI, like using that to manage the pain. And eventually, they say, the pain goes away.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're ready for the final stage.
And the final stage is, well, pretty intense. You stand up straight and you actually punch your testicles full force. And supposedly, you don't feel any pain. They're very clear. If you can do this, you've mastered Men Dan Gong. Now, throughout this whole process, there's a really strict requirement. You can't have any sexual activity, not even sexual thoughts. That's how serious they were about the mental and physical discipline needed for this skill.
Wow, just wow. Okay, let's move on, shall we? Skill number 43, the skill of deft jumps, or Quanzong Shu. Another one focused on strengthening the internal, a soft Gong Fu. And the text actually mentions some historical skepticism around this skill. Back in the day, apparently, lots of people didn't even believe it existed. Maybe because anyone who mastered it was super secretive about it.
What's really interesting here is the way they prepare the lead used in training. It's pretty elaborate. First, they soak raw lead in pig's blood overnight. Then they heat it up until it's red hot and dunk it back in fresh pig's blood 7 times. They say this changes the lead, makes it dark violet. They call it dead lead. Then they bury this dead lead underground for 49 days. Apparently, this further refines it and maybe, according to traditional beliefs, gets rid of any negative aspects.
Okay, so then they make canvas bags filled with this dead lead, and they wrap these bags around the trainees' calves, forearms, and even along their backbone. Each bag can weigh up to 8 gnans. That's about 4 kilos. The first phase of training, just running on mountain roads and passes, wearing these lead weights for a whole year. Talk about endurance training.
It's intense, and then it gets harder. They start running on the edge of a huge vat. It's called PAO Gang Gong FU, and they also run on top of these piles of stones. That's YIZU PAO ZAUN. The whole point is to not fall off, to not knock anything over. It takes incredible balance and control. They consider this the first half of mastering deft jumps.
The second half, jumping. They start by standing straight and jumping straight up. The goal is to reach 1 CHI, about 33 centimeters. First they do it with the lead weights, then without. Once they can clear that, they aim to jump over a distance of 2 zigeijangs. That's over 6.5 meters.
And it gets even wilder. The final stage involves jumping out of a pit. They start with a shallow pit, just 1 chi deep. Then they gradually increase the depth all the way to 2 zhang's. And they even do the jumps with the lead weights at first, before progressing to doing them without any added weight. The text also talks about specific arm movements during the jump, like you're trying to maximize that upward force. And after, get this, 7 to 8 years of this crazy training, they claim you become super light and agile. They say you'll have incredible speed, you can jump super high, you can even move along walls silently. All skills that, as the text points out, would be super helpful if you were, say, defending yourself against bandits or navigating tricky terrain. It's like your whole body transforms.
It does sound pretty unbelievable, honestly. All right, let's look at one more. Skill number 48, pulling a silk thread, or Yi Xian Chuan. They also call it Dama crosses the river and flight over water, which is pretty evocative. This is another soft Qian Fu, and it's all about developing this internal power that makes you, well, light and agile. It's part of the light body skill, the Jin Shen Shu.
Yeah, they compared this skill to those amazing feats you read about in old knightly stories, like, walking on water or running on snow without leaving a trace. The first stages of training for pulling a silk thread, they're actually similar to what we saw with the skill of flight and some of the other light body training. You start by tying little bags of lead shot around your legs. They start really light, just 200 grams, and gradually increase the weight up to 2.5 kilos. And then you practice running with those. After that, it's jumping on those uneven mountain paths. And then walking on the edges of a basket filled with stones. You slowly remove stones as your balance gets better. Oh, and they mentioned treating the lead shot with pig's blood here too, just like with the skill of deft jumps.
And then it gets really interesting. The training progresses to these super delicate balancing acts, like walking on sheets of thin paper that are laid on top of sand. And the goal is to not leave any footprints, to not even tear the paper. Then they move on to walking on a thin wooden stick, suspended in the air, trying to keep it perfectly still. And then they use a thicker rope tied between two supports, again, working on keeping it completely balanced, no swinging.
The final stages of this training are crazy. They slowly make the rope thinner and thinner until the person can walk on a cord as thick as a finger without making it move. Then they use the absolute thinnest cord they can find. The ultimate achievement in Yuxian Xuan is being able to actually cross a river by walking on a single rope. And they actually reference the legend of Damo, the founder of Chan Buddhism, who supposedly crossed the Yangtze River on a single reed. That's like the ideal for this skill.
Yeah.
And they say to get to that level, well, it takes a long time, more than 10 years of dedicated, consistent practice.
More than 10 years.
Yeah.
It really makes you realize how seriously they took this, how much dedication they put in. And it feels like we've barely scratched the surface of this whole world of the 72 Arts of Shaolin.
Yeah, it's incredible. What really stands out to me is how varied these skills are. It's a mix of hardcore physical training for strength, and then this very subtle internal energy cultivation, and then these super specialized techniques that seem almost impossible.
And the level of commitment is mind-blowing. We're talking years, decades of focused effort. It wasn't a quick fix. It was a way of life. So as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with something to think about. What does this all tell us about discipline? About the potential of the human body?
Yeah.
About our desire for mastery, which we still see today in so many areas.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? I'm curious, which of these skills did you find most surprising, or maybe most intriguing, or even just plain unbelievable? And what other questions does this deep dive spark for you? We definitely encourage you to keep exploring these fascinating and often really mysterious aspects of Shaolin training.